selves, it's your girl Adorn Jamani here. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Adorn Speaks, Affairs of the Heart. This is a safe place where we heal and become our better selves together. If you guys are new here, welcome. Yeah, let's get into this juiciness. If you guys are interested, continue watching. Okay, guys, this is episode 3 of Affairs of the Heart, season 2 of my podcast sessions. Yeah, and this week's topic is fear. Last week's topic was sadness, and I received so many good responses. I'm so happy that you guys were touched by it. I'm so happy that you guys dig deep into your emotions, trying to understand yourself so you can navigate life much easier. For those of you who haven't checked out last week's episode, it's here on YouTube and it's also on Apple Podcast at Adorn Speaks, and on YouTube Adorn Jamani. Yeah, if you guys want the link for that, it's in the description box. Now let's get into this week's topic. Open my book here. Okay, so what is fear? Fear is an emotion. It's something that you feel when I think that we can say that fear, you have different types of fear, right? You have fear of loss, right? Like fear of losing something, and you also have that type of fear like when you're afraid, like being afraid of the dark or being afraid of dopey, as we Jamaicans would say. And you also have fear, like the biblical version, that means respect. However, in this podcast, we're talking about fear, the emotion, not the respect for God, not having fear for God, which means respect. We're talking about the fear, like when you're afraid. Yeah, the emotion. Fear. I think that fear comes with a lack of where fear comes in when there's a lack of faith. What is faith? The biblical definition of faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So when you go to church, or not even going to church, like when you're going through a hard time or something, many people would say, have faith in God. When you're shortened, when that faith is shortened or it's not enough, then that's when fear comes in. Last week I was talking about David and Saul. And we were saying that after David killed Goliath, he went into Saul's house and he helped Saul with many things, helped him win many battles. And then jealousy came in, and Saul wanted to kill David. Fear can open when you entertain fear. That's just an example of when you entertain fear, you can open many doors. So fear can open a door of jealousy, right? Like for Saul, because he was he had fear that David was going to take over the kingdom, right? That's why he wanted to kill him, right? And that's how that jealousy came in. So that's one example of fear. I don't know if you guys ever watched this movie. It's called Fear, but they abbreviate it. It's F. F is means forget, and E means everything. The A means a. No, the A means and the R means run. So fear in the movie forget everything and run. And I feel like with the movie, the name of the movie was just a genius idea. Like it really makes sense. When fear comes in, it's like we want to forget everything and run. Cause I'm pretty sure when you're in a room and something in the room now go right, you get up and run, right? You run to safety, right? Us as believers and as people who believe in God, when we're in a situation and fear comes in, we run to God, right? We run to him for to feel safe. However, not everybody run to God. Sometimes when fear comes in, we run to jealousy, like Saul did. He feared that David was going to take over. He feared that I feel like expectations too, come to think of it, because Saul, I remember giving the rundown on Saul. Last week I gave you guys the rundown on David, so now I'm going to give you the rundown on Saul. Saul, he was from a very poor tribe. Like, I'm gonna change it up into the 21st. I'm gonna give you it in the 21st century vibes. So Saul come from the ghetto, right? The ghetto part of the Israelites tribe. So for example, if you're living in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, Saul come from the ghetto part in a Kingston, Jamaica, right? Um um his dad, I think his dad lost a goat or a sheep or something, and he sent him to look for it or whatever. But before Saul went to look for it, the same Samuel who anointed David, like I was telling you last week, he got a word from God the day before, or some days before, right, that Saul was going to come, and he's the one that he was the one who was supposed to be anointed as king. Because you know the story of the Israelites when they were in Egypt with Pharaoh and them crossed the Red Sea, all of that has passed, right? And they are in a independent people, but they wanted someone to rule over them, right? They had God, but they wanted a physical man, and that's how Saul became king. So Saul, he was ordained by God. Had ordained Saul as king, right? But because of disobedience, Saul, he wanted to live up to people's expectations, right? And he forgot about God and forget that he's living up to God's expectations. He feared in disappointing people. So it's safe to say that based on Paul, based on Saul, right? Not Paul, based on Saul, and based on people that are around us, even myself, fear can come in when we're not living at a certain standard or a certain expectations. The fear of failure, right? That's an example of how fear intervenes in our life. And so write this down. 1, how to get over that emotion, that fear, that emotion that is called fear. Stop trying to live up to the expectations of man. I'm gonna let that sink in. Stop trying to live up to the expectations of man. Live up to the expectations of God. So that's one on the list. Fear. Fear of fear of failure. And it also goes back to what I was saying last week about control. Right? You want to be in control of your life. You're thinking that you're doing this journey, you're in this journey, and whatever you're doing, it's of your own, it's of yourself. It is not. You're not, you can't do this on your own. Right? You cannot. And that's how that spirit of fear comes in. Don't get me wrong, we are all a work in progress. We are humans, and of course, fear is going to seep in our lives. Of course, we're going to feel fear. Of course, we're going to be afraid because this is life, and life sometime. Life is lifing. Life is can definitely life sometime. Life can be very hard sometime, and it's very tricky, and it can be very misleading. That's why we need to lean on God. We need to lean on the Creator and to trust Him and to have faith in Him. Honestly, at first when I was coming with this podcast, I had in my head I was going to come on here and say, "Oh, having faith is the opposite of fear." But no, faith is not the opposite of fear. However, it's the antidote for fear. Try to build up your faith. That's why I feel like it's very important what we feed ourselves with. I don't know if I'm the only person. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person. When I'm feeling when I'm feeling like upset or down, I tend to go into a little shell, and I tend to go watch a movie, a sad movie, or listen to some sad songs, or some kind of depressed songs. But instead of going and sitting and listening to sad movies and just sob and go into depression, just try to listen to some motivational speakers. Try to watch a preaching online, or go on to Apple Podcasts and listen to Adorn Speaks, or come on here on YouTube and watch Adorn Jamani. Yeah. Don't say I didn't put you on to Adorn Jamani. She be talking some facts. Y'all should go check her out. But yeah, when you're feeling fearful, right? When you're feeling sad, don't be careful what you run to, right? Run to God. Don't run to subby movies or subby songs to go into depression. Run to God. Listen to some motivational speakers. Read your Bible. Put on some worship music or something. I don't want to stray too much. Let me get back on track. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about faith. Yeah, I was saying that I was thinking in my head, I was going to come on here and say, "Oh, faith is the opposite of fear," but it's really not. Faith is the antidote for fear, because faith is a gift from God. Why do I say faith is a gift from God? Because why do I say faith is a gift from God? Um, because He gives us a surety, right? Through word of wisdom, through His very presence, that He's with us, that He's got us, that we are not alone. So whenever you feel like you're in the dark room, you're in a dark room by yourself, you're not alone. Whenever you feel like you're in a sticky situation, and it's all upon you, and that fear wants to creep in, you have to take a grip and to remember that you're not alone. Um I remember I when I was in college, we used to have deep conversation because I was a science major. My first major was biology, and my science professor, um I don't remember his name, and I don't want to say his name, but you know the whole idea of how can you believe that there is a God, right? Um Having faith is kinda like that. That's why the whole, if you look in the Bible, it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, right? It's the substance of things hoped for, something that you yearn for. You yearn to be safe, you desire to be safe, right? But it's the evidence of things not seen. So that faith that faith that faith is something to hold on to. um yeah. I was listening to Sarah Jakes Richards message last, I think it was her last message Sunday. I was watching it Sunday, and it was titled A Bold Move, and she was also talking about Saul, and saying saying that she was also saying that Saul, he wanted to live up to others people's expectations, and he was blinded by that, and he couldn't live up to his standards. And I feel like I want to touch on that or elaborate from that. Um, Fear, having control. Um, sometimes we can be so busy, right? Trying to live up to other people's standards, right? And trying to please this world, and trying to please the people of this world, when who we don't live up to our standards, like who we are ordained to be, who what God has put into us goes to waste. Sometimes it's good to just go with God's motion, to just, you know, go with him. It's more peaceful, and having faith is the antidote for fear. One of my friends texted me, and she wanted me to also touch on fear. She wanted me to elaborate on what I was saying about fear and fear with anxiety. Um, Fear and anxiety, right? I was saying in last week's podcast that anxiety has to do with control. When we feel like we don't have control of out of a situation, when we feel like we don't have control of a situation, we have anxiety attacks, right? And what is fear? Fear is when you also feel like you don't have control over something, right? Um, let's use by the example with a dark room. Um, when you're in a dark room and the place dark, and like you hear the crackling or something, you gotta jump up or you gotta run or something and go turn on the light, right? Or some kids they rather for the light to be on, because when the light is on, they can see, right? They can see all around them, they can see what is happening. It gives them an advantage of their it gives them an advantage of their environment. It gives them control of their environment, right? When the light is off now, you can't see your environment, you have no advantage, so you become fearful. You can use that as of like the same thing with life. When things like when you have some dark areas in your life or things happen and you don't have any advantage, you don't know how to navigate the situation, fear is going to come in. That's when fear comes in, and that's what I'm saying. Con you don't have control over that situation anymore. So it all leads back to having faith in God and giving everything to him. So whenever your world seems dark, whenever you find yourself in a dark situation, you won't have an anxiety attack. You won't panic. You won't go into depression. You won't break down because you're not yearning. You're not desiring for control. You're not taking over the wheel. You're allowing God to work things out. So that's how fear feeds anxiety. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Adorn Speaks. This episode was short, but it was filled with information. I would say. Thank you guys so much for the continuous support. Thank you guys so much for tuning in over and over and over again. Guys, I got disconnected from my audio. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's video. And guys, I need you to like, comment, share, but most importantly, I need you guys to subscribe to the video. Subscribe to the channel so you guys can, and turn on your post notification so you guys can know whenever I post a new video. Yeah.
One get one leap of love, one leap of hate. More while I live in the streets, have to keep me up my dream.